guys, Ace here, and I'm doing something a little different today, and probably for another few days. So if you remember a few months ago, the gang played a game called World War Z, which is a multiplayer zombie horde survival game. And we went through the first 2 levels, but we pretty much never touched it again. And a few days ago, I decided that since we're not going to play it, I should just play it myself. And then the idea popped in my head, why not make a synopsis video? And that's exactly what I'm doing. In the spirit of Haunting Halloween, I'm going to be going over World War Z and its surprisingly amazing stories in as little detail as possible, and you'll see why. For each video, I'm going to be going episode to episode and explaining chapters in those episodes. And in this video, I'm going to be going over episode 1, chapters 1 through 4. I'm not going to be spending too much time on the first 2 chapters because we already made 2 videos on it showing exactly what happens, so if you want to go know really what happens there, you can just watch our other videos. Firstly, we are set in New York, which is seemingly war-torn by the infected. Also, I should mention before we go any further, for each episode you can choose from 4 different characters, all having sort of different archetypes, but all having very unique backgrounds. I didn't feel like going through a mission with every character to get their background stories, so I'll just tell you about the ones I played in. In New York, or episode 1, you get to play as either a gang member, a firefighter with PTSD, a hacker/doomer, and an engineer who got separated from her family. If you watch the first 2 videos, you notice that I picked Slasher, and I definitely saw that as a class for me, especially while playing single player, because it really has a need to survive with its skill set. I didn't even look at the other classes, so they might have the same thing. I just know that Slasher is pretty easy to play when you're playing on your own. But anyway, with that in mind, I ended up choosing characters that convinced me that they could be a slasher. By the way, if you don't know what a slasher is, it's basically a class who's designed around melee and tanking hits from zombies. For the first episode, I chose the chillest gang member still alive, Angel Flores. Angel Flores' model has a big iron as he just calmly puts on sunglasses and loads it. That is so good. And honestly, if you're thinking I should have chose the firefighter, that's pretty weird because the firefighter has PTSD from 9/11. I don't see him being able to swing an axe at people very easily, even if they are infected. I feel like there'd still be that little mental block, but I feel like on how Angel Flores would be kind of quick to it, you know what I mean? Like he would still have that mental block, but it wouldn't be that big of a mental block. Anyway, off topic, you and your 3 friends for some reason start on the rooftop in the middle of the city and are tasked with finding a way to the evac zone. The way that you would do this requires running around an office building, shooting a bunch of zombies, eventually getting to a large horde in the lobby. This is where the game introduces a lot of its mechanics to you with defenses, heavy weapons, teamwork, and you get into the lobby, it's 2 stories, and there's a horde of zombies coming to you. This is the first swarm you fight, technically. And seeing as this is the introduction to the game, I don't really want to judge it that much. It was very to the point. They come in through one place, you set up defenses behind that one place, and you just make sure they don't come in. That's fair, it's showing you basically what it is, it's very to the point, that's fine. After you survive the horde, you make your way down the street to subway tunnels, where you conveniently find some very helpful train conductors who tell you that they will drive you to where you want to go if you survive another horde that's attacking them. Now before I go any further, I want to really hang on this because that didn't really make sense. You'll see as we go on later throughout the episode, but these train conductors wanting or being able to transport you to where you want to go doesn't really make sense for them, because they would just be in the train and the train either goes in a loop or only goes one way. You know what I mean? Anyway, but after surviving the horde that the train conductors wanted you to survive, they actually do keep their word and take you on your way. And this is where chapter 2 starts. Chapter 2 starts with you on the train and something ends up blocking the train. And you have to get out, go find ways to unblock it, turn on the power, kill the zombies. Pretty much a very basic mission. I think it's another introduction to tell you what's going to be happening later on with different missions. It's the search for stuff, find stuff, But you eventually restore power and open the gate, and along the way you meet some lovely infected people who actually try to race you to the exit, all in good fun obviously, but after they lose, they get all angry and they start gathering a few hundred of their friends and start to bum rush you and take your Jordans, and they also try to run into the train. But for some reason, they don't really care about who's in the train, they just more care about getting to you by climbing on top of the train. Or at least that's how it looked, we didn't really pay much attention. Anyway, once you clear that horde, you do maybe one or two things, turning on the lights and opening the doors, and then you go on your merry way. This is where Chapter 3 starts, and Chapter 3 is the first part that is not part of the pre-recorded, already posted chapters. Chapter 3 starts with the train finally taking you to the city where you wanted to go, and there's active bombing happening in the street. But you eventually make your way to a warehouse where you are met with very little resistance, and you do whatever you do there, and you go on your way eventually to get to a dock where you find a boat. This boat is out far from the dock, so you have to winch it back, which I think is a pretty interesting idea because, you know, that way the zombies can't board it very easily. But it also looks like it's at a military checkpoint that was abandoned, so it makes me wonder who left that boat there. But besides the point, you have to winch it in and it starts making a loud noise, alarm goes off, whatever, a large horde comes to rush you and you have to hold them off. And you eventually, you know, obviously you do, and you bring the boat in, you get on the boat, and you go out, and it shows this small part where the zombies are jumping into the water to try and get them. I've always been curious, I don't know if they ever explained it in the book or in the movie or even in the game. I'm always curious what happens when they go in the water. Do they just drown? Are they able to swim up and get air? Like, do they still have that mental process? Anyway, you go on the boat and you start driving for a little bit, but then the boat runs out of fuel, and this is where Chapter 4 starts. The boat runs out of fuel, and one of the characters says that they have to bring it over for a stop. And what doesn't really make sense for me was that I feel like they would have prepared for that. You know what I mean? Like, they would have known that there wasn't a lot of fuel, or at least not enough to get where they were going, and then figure that out there instead of saying, by the way, we're out of fuel, I'm gonna stop here, and then everyone moans and gets all angry. But anyway, you end up stopping on the side of the street, you walk up, and there's just bodies in piles everywhere. And you walk for a bit, running into groups, small groups here and there, but you're also introduced, or I was introduced, it might have been stuff earlier that I didn't see, but you're introduced into multipathing, which is being able to take one or two or three different routes to a destination, all having different loot, different encounters. In this case, it was the rooftop or the subway. The first time I went down the subway and I died because I was trying it on a higher difficulty. So the next time I ended up accidentally going on the rooftop, and it worked out because there wasn't that many people there. But you eventually make it to a bridge where you are also introduced to claymores and mistakes. Claymores, you can walk there. Well, they're claymores. If you've ever seen a claymore in any other game, you know what they look like. And you walk up to them and you can disarm them, or you can leave them and try to walk around them so the zombies who would walk into them make the explosion. So remember when I said the first time I tried it I died? Well, this is where I died. I accidentally walked into some claymores, it spawned a horde, and everyone was already at low health, so they all died before I even had a chance to try and save them. But this time I learned my lesson, and it turns out there were no claymores. So that means either they have the save data from the last time, in that they left the claymores because you already blew them up, or it's different spawns different times. I like to think that it's the latter because that's actually really cool. You start to learn that there are certain parts where if you make enough noise, an actual horde will come out of a place that a horde was not there already, or a large group rather. So you have to be very careful with not making explosions, not using loud weapons too much. And I also said that I was trying it on a higher difficulty. This is where I think officially the game starts to tell you that normal plus normal or higher levels than normal is not for people playing on their own. Or at least not for people playing on their own who aren't very, very skilled at the game. Because you start to realize that the other characters die faster, you can't kill them fast enough, you can't do enough damage unless you're already a high level. So for the most part, you're going to be if you're playing single player, for the most part, you're going to be wanting to do it on easy, which is a slow grind to upgrade weapons and gear, but it's honestly worth it because you're not dying every now and again. But after the bridge, you get through it, and let's say you don't spawn the horde, it's very easy, you just shoot 3 or 4 zombies and you're through it. And the army actually contacts you and says that they see you, that you're pretty close to an evac zone, and that if you can get to the hospital that they're stationed at, they will help you and take you out. So naturally you trust them, and you go to the nearby hospital down through the basement, and you're actually, this is where I was introduced into auto turrets against you. And what auto turrets can do is that they shoot zombies and you alike, but you can spend a little bit of time if you get behind one to hack it, and then it only shoots zombies, which works out pretty well, except if you're in a room with 4 turrets all facing each other, and then you kind of have to tank some shots. But it's honestly not that hard, if you know what you're doing at least. And let's say that I did and got through that part, you get in an elevator and you go up and you're met by the military. And this is where you actually start to see a world. You know what I mean? Like it's not just you 4 talking to someone on the radio and going through buildings and clearing people, and sometimes seeing people that you can't really interact with. This is the first time where you're with the military, like there's people, you see the evacuation happening, and I think that's really cool for world building, in that it doesn't really build it, but it expects you to build for it with your imagination. But you get to the front of the hospital, and you have to defend it from an incoming horde, obviously, and you into an encounter where this person's supposed to shoot up a flare so that they can bomb the horde before it gets to you, but they fell asleep. And I'm serious about that. They said like maybe a few moments beforehand that, I hope that guy's not sleeping, we really need him on the flare gun. Anyway, so you end up having to pick up the flare gun and shooting it, and that's actually a really good mechanic because you can use it over and over. It has more than one shot, so you can use it at different areas where you have to defend because they come from all sides. It's the standard, survive the swarm, set up defenses, check every now and again of different places or different areas, except now they said that they have traps in the hospital that you have to go in and reset. What they don't tell you is that the zombies outside don't stop coming. So this is where it starts to get a little difficult for a single player, because you have to not only rush through the horde to get in to turn on the trap, but then you have to rush out to stop the horde from getting in. But anyway, it's just running in, running out, running in, running out, setting up traps, killing the horde, and eventually you get through it, and the helicopter picks everyone up, and they end on a sort of weird quote with them going in, and then I think Angel says, "What's next?" And then the military guy says, "We run, I don't know what's after that." And that's very not inspiring, I'm gonna be honest. But that is the end of episode 1. TLDR, you run through the Bronx trying to find the military, and by some sheer luck you actually do find them, and you survive thousands and thousands of zombies to eventually leave, only to be told that they don't know what's gonna happen. Thank you guys so much for watching. This covered episode 1, New York, in as very little detail as I could. I wanted to do it that way because I didn't want to give away too much. There's obviously some stuff that I'm leaving out, or stuff that I'm skipping over on purpose because either it wasn't that big of a deal or I just couldn't remember it. But that also is to encourage you to go buy this game and play this game, because if you have 3 other friends, 2 other friends, or at least 1 other friend to play this with, it's definitely a game that you should get. I will say playing this on your own is a slight bit of a challenge, but it is worth it if you're actually interested in the story. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. Next time we'll be talking about episode 2, which is Jerusalem, which is probably one of my favorite missions, I'm gonna be honest. Super psyched, and I'll see you there.
Purchase your